Have you ever considered what happens when you completely disappear from someone's life? I'm not talking about a little distance, but vanishing entirely. No texts, no calls, no contact. Imagine what they would feel when you're truly gone. In a world where people often assume they can take others for granted, let's flip the narrative, disappear, and watch how their world unravels. This video is critical if you've ever found yourself in a situation where someone treated you like an option, rather than a priority. Today, we're diving into the intense emotional stages they will go through when you vanish. And by the end, you'll understand why sometimes walking away and never looking back is the most powerful move you can make. We'll cover 10 emotional stages, starting with the sting of rejection. This is where it all begins. They never saw it coming. They thought you would always be there, doing the heavy lifting in the relationship, making the plans, showing up consistently, providing comfort and validation. You were the one they could rely on. But when you vanish, it's like hitting them with a brick they didn't expect. You've probably heard the saying, you don't know what you have until it's gone. This is exactly what happens when you disappear. The absence of you isn't just physical. It's the absence of everything you represented. The comfort, the emotional support, the constant presence. Their feeling of rejection isn't just superficial. It's a deep, personal sting. For the first time, they realize they can't control you anymore. They didn't appreciate you when you were around because they always thought you'd be there, like a safety net they could rely on. But once you're gone, they have to face the fact that they took you for granted. The sting of rejection is stronger than they imagined, and it forces them to ask themselves, how did I let this happen? The next stage is the void of missing you. After the sting fades, they start feeling something much deeper, emptiness. At first, they probably convinced themselves that they wouldn't miss you, that life would go on just fine without you. But as time passes, they realize how much they took you for granted. The void isn't just a gap, it's an aching emptiness that gnaws at them. They go through their day, but something is off. They realize that you brought meaning to their life in ways they never considered. The warmth, the emotional stability, the energy you provided, it's all gone. They may try to fill the void with someone else or distract themselves with work, but nothing ever compares. The void keeps growing because no one else can replace what you brought to the table. It's the little things they start missing, the conversations, the laughs, the way you made them feel understood. And now, you're not there to offer any of that. The deeper they fall into this void, the more they start wondering where you are, what you're doing, and who you're with. They become overwhelmed with curiosity. They want to know everything about your life now that you've vanished. In today's world, where everything is connected through social media, this curiosity is amplified. They'll check your Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, looking for any update, any clue as to what's going on in your life. But guess what? You've gone completely dark. No stories, no posts, no sign of life on any platform. This drives them crazy because human nature despises the unknown. They need to know what you're up to, and when they can't find out, their mind starts running wild with questions. Have they moved on? Are they seeing someone else? Are they better off without me? In their desperation, they may even reach out to mutual friends, trying to gather information about you. But they won't admit that they care. Their pride won't allow it. It's almost comical in a way. The same person who once treated you like an option is now scrambling to figure out what you're doing, feeling insecure and vulnerable. But it's too late. They've crossed the line, and now they must deal with the consequences of their actions. Next comes the stage of regret. After they've spent days or weeks trying to figure out what happened to you, they begin to feel the weight of their decisions. Regret is a heavy emotion, and they start wishing they'd treated you better, respected you more. They'll think back to the times they ignored your needs or took you for granted. Regret is a natural consequence of realizing they've lost something valuable. But by the time they come to this realization, it's usually too late. They can't undo the past, and they can't rewind time to fix their mistakes. The next stage is self-blame. As regret sets in, they start turning their frustration inward. They'll wonder if they could have done something differently to make you stay, to keep you around. They'll blame themselves for not appreciating you when they had the chance. This phase can be especially painful because they have to face the truth that their actions led to the end of the relationship. They may try to rationalize their behavior, telling themselves that you were the one who overreacted or that they didn't deserve you. But deep down, they know the truth. Their actions were the catalyst for your disappearance, and they'll have to live with that. Then comes the stage of desperation. Now that they're fully aware of the loss, they'll do everything in their power to get you back. They'll reach out, apologize, try to make amends. But by now, you're already well on your way to healing, and their words no longer carry the weight they once did. Desperation is often a last-ditch effort to regain control of a situation that's already slipped away. They'll send you texts, maybe even show up at your door, hoping to reopen the lines of communication. But their actions come across as desperate because they know they've lost you for good. The next stage is acceptance. After all the emotional turmoil, they'll eventually come to terms with the fact that you're gone. This stage isn't easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. But as time passes, they'll start to realize that you're no longer a part of their life. They might not like it, but they'll accept that the relationship is over, and there's no turning back. The last emotional stage is the realization that they will never find another you. This is the hardest truth for them to accept. They may try to move on, start new relationships, and fill the void with new people, but it will never be the same. They'll eventually realize that no one else brings the same energy, the same connection, and the same depth to their life as you did. You are unique, and there will never be another person who can replace what you brought into their world. In the end, disappearing without warning is a powerful strategy. It forces the other person to confront their own behavior, their own insecurities, and their own feelings of loss. By the time they realize the value of your presence in their life, it's usually too late to fix things. You've already moved on, and they're left to deal with the aftermath. If you've ever found yourself treated as an option, it's time to recognize your worth and take control of your life. When you walk away, don't look back. Let them feel the sting of rejection, the void of missing you, and the overwhelming curiosity that comes with not knowing where you've gone. By the time they realize the depth of their loss, you'll have already moved forward, leaving them to live with the consequences of their actions. I'm not talking about pulling back slightly, or distancing yourself a little. I mean completely vanishing. No texts, no calls, no contact at all. What do they really feel when you're gone? What emotions come to the surface when you simply stop being there for them? In today's world, where people often assume others will always be there for them, vanishing can cause a seismic shift. Relationships can become unbalanced, and people start treating each other like options, rather than priorities. But what happens when you flip the script? When you vanish completely? I promise, their world will fall apart. This isn't just an ordinary disappearance, it's a game changer. If you've ever been in a situation where someone's gotten too comfortable with treating you like an afterthought or an option, then this video, or this writing, is for you. This is about the deep, intense emotions they'll experience when you simply leave without warning. We're talking about the powerful concept of emotional withdrawal. How they'll feel when you take yourself out of the equation and force them to face what they've truly lost. We're going to break down 10 emotional stages they will go through, one by one. And by the end, you'll understand why sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away, and never look back. If you're ready to regain control, if you want to make them miss you more than they've ever missed anyone before, let's dive into this. By the end of this, you won't ever have to feel like an option again. So stay tuned until the end, because we're even throwing in a bonus 10th stage, one you don't want to miss. It all starts here. The first and most immediate emotional response they'll feel, when you disappear without any explanation, it's like you've hit them with a metaphorical brick they never saw coming. They didn't expect you to leave. Not really. In their mind, you were always going to be there for them. You were the one who put in the effort, the one who made plans, and the one who cared. But when you suddenly vanish, it shocks them to their core. For the first time, they realize they don't have control over you, and that realization hits deeper than anything else. They start to they don't value you when you're always there to pick up the pieces. They begin to treat you as a fallback option. You become something they rely on, but never prioritize. But when you pull away, when you vanish completely, they lose that fallback. You've snatched away their safety net, and the panic begins to set in. They never saw it coming, and suddenly, they're left wondering, how did I let this happen? What they feel is the sting of rejection on a whole new level. And if you want them to truly feel it, don't tell them you're leaving. Don't ask for their attention. Just disappear. When you ghost them without any explanation, it forces them to reflect on their actions. They can no longer blame you for anything. They have no one to hold accountable but themselves. And that rejection? It's not going anywhere. It's going to hurt for a long time. Once the initial sting fades, something else starts to take hold. Initially, they might have told themselves that they wouldn't miss you, that your absence wouldn't bother them. They may have convinced themselves that they'd be fine if you left. If they leave, I'll just move on, they probably thought. But what happens when you actually disappear without a trace? Suddenly, they're struck by the emptiness you left behind. This isn't just any emptiness. It's a deep, gnawing void that they can't shake. They go about their day-to-day life, doing the same things they always did, but there's something missing. Something crucial. That's when they realize it. You were the one who brought meaning to their life. You provided the warmth, the energy, the emotional stability. You made their life feel fuller, more vibrant. And now, without you, everything feels dull. You weren't just an accessory to their life. You were a vital part of it. They took you for granted, assuming you would always be there. But now that you're gone, they can't replace you. They may try, of course. They might go out with friends, date someone new, or throw themselves into work. But nothing fills the void you left behind. They start to realize that you are irreplaceable. No one else brought the same energy, the same emotional depth, the same understanding that you did. Every day, the void grows larger, and they become more and more aware of what they've lost. The irony is, they never appreciated you when they had you. They thought they could do better, or maybe they thought you would always be there. But now that you've disappeared, they start to miss the little things, the way you made them laugh, the way you understood them without words. The small moments that seemed insignificant at the time now become everything they crave. But here's the catch, you're no longer there to provide them. To really make them feel the void, don't leave any room for them to find you. Block them on social media, delete their number, and make sure they can't casually check in on you. The deeper they realize that they can't access you, the more that void will grow. Every time they think about you and try to reach out, only to find nothing, the emptiness will grow stronger as the days go on and the void becomes harder to ignore. Something else starts to happen. Now, they're desperate to know what you're doing, who you're with, and what's going on in your life. The uncertainty becomes unbearable, and they begin to obsess over it. They want answers, but you've gone completely off the grid. In today's digital age, this stage intensifies. With social media everywhere, they can't resist the urge to check your profiles. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, every platform, looking for even the slightest clue about your life. But here's the kicker. You're not posting anything. You've gone completely dark. There are no updates, no stories, no photos, nothing. And that drives them crazy. Why? Because humans hate the unknown. It messes with their minds. When they can't get the answers they crave, their insecurities surface. They wonder, have you moved on? Are you with someone else? Are they better off without me? All of these questions begin to haunt them, and they can't handle it. They'll start reaching out to mutual friends, trying to get information. They'll ask questions about you, but they'll be too proud to admit that they care. It's almost sad how someone who once thought they didn't need you now becomes fixated on finding out what's going on in your life. This curiosity becomes an obsession. The less they know, the more they want to know. You become the one thing they can't stop thinking about, and your silence fuels their desire for answers. To be why now, they've been forced to confront their own emotions. The curiosity has turned into something deeper. After days, or even weeks, of wondering where you are and what you're doing, they finally begin to turn inward. They start asking themselves the hard questions. Was I too distant? Was I too cold? Did I push them away? Did I mess this up? The regret sets in, and it's brutal. That here's the thing about people. They don't like to admit their mistakes. It's human nature to try and justify your actions, to make excuses, and to blame others. But when you disappear, you take away their excuses. They're forced to face their behavior head-on, and it's not a comfortable experience. They start replaying every interaction in their mind, wondering if they could have done something differently. They think about all the times they ignored your messages, dismissed your feelings, or made you feel unimportant. It's a painful process, and deep down, they know they had something good with you, but they took it for granted. Now, they're stuck with a harsh reality that they messed up. They can't blame you anymore, because you're not around to argue with. They can't rationalize their behavior. The only person they can blame is themselves, and that's a tough pill to swallow. The more they reflect, the more they realize how much they took you for granted. The guilt builds, and they start wishing they could go back and do things differently. But here's the problem. It's too late now. You've already walked away. During this stage, it's important that you don't reach out. Don't try to explain yourself or make them understand why you left. Let them reflect on their own. Don't intervene. Self-reflection is most powerful when it's internal, and the more time they spend reflecting, the more they'll realize they were the reason things went wrong. Let them sit with that guilt. It's a lesson they need to learn. As self-reflection sets in, something shifts. They move from regret to desire. Becomes overwhelming. They start thinking about you constantly, and suddenly, they can't stop wondering if it's too late to make things right. They start sending you those "I've been thinking about you" texts. They might